Rearmed Ganglot brings Arcane Downfall as an inheritable arcane axe to a lot of units to revitalize your favorites, and in this video I'll be going over the best users of it and the builds that you can run with this weapon. So Arcane Downfall is a 16 might weapon that can give you -1 special cooldown and +5 to all of your stats. It also has follow-up negation built into it, and it can also provide you with special cooldown charge on both your attacks and opponent's attacks. And finally can heal you up for 7 HP per hit in the combat. So overall this weapon is pretty good for a lot of speedy units because you can get extra speed out of this, and you can also use the special acceleration to pretty much loop stuff like godlike reflexes or retaliate back with a 2 cooldown special like bonfire or iceberg. Follow-up negation is definitely a useful defensive effect, but this weapon is not going to be as universally useful as Arcane Lutnier or Arcane Grima because it doesn't really provide you with an auto follow-up. So a lot of slower units are still going to be left using other skills to get an auto follow-up. And because Ganglot is an infantry unit, you can definitely use the skill duplication. I'm not gonna go on with the details, I've already explained them in a video. But yeah, basically you can pass down Arcane Downfall, Distant Stance, Quick Repose 4 at the same time. And you can also, inherit all of the premium skills that she has got. Because she's an infantry unit, she has got a wide pool of skills that you can give to her, which are going to be rare, like Vital Astra, Godlike Reflexes. Even though she's not going to be making the best use of those skills herself, you can pretty much use her as a way to pass those skills down to multiple units when you get mergers of Ganglot. And many of these skills are going to be pretty rare to get. So you can definitely use a Rearmed hero for that purpose, which many people I know are going to be using her for. In my opinion, the Axe Infantry units are pretty much the best users of this because of the fact that they've got access to Null Follow-Up, Godlike Reflexes, Vital Astra, and Null Follow-Up, all of those things. So fast units are definitely going to be making good use of this because they are going to be able to use those skills, and if they're fast, they can essentially get a pseudo half Null Follow-Up with the follow-up negation effect that you can get out of this weapon. So if you're fast, you're pretty much going to be able to win the speed check against a lot of the opponents which are going to be having auto follow-up. So you can stop their auto follow-up attacks without even having null follow-up, so having higher speed is always going to be helping you. If you're slow, then Quick Repose 4 should definitely be obtained from Ganglot so that you can have that auto follow-up and the damage reduction. And I'm also going to be considering if they have any kind of trade-off. So because you cannot use any kind of exclusive skill with arcane weapons, this is largely going to be dependent on the stat allocation. So it is going to be a stat race, and in the stat race, a lot of the units are going to be coming out on top in tier 1. So Charlotte, Shez, Raven, Rinka are some of the better units that you can use with Arcane Downfall. Charlotte might seem a bit borderline for some people with her weapon, but honestly her weapon is not as stacked. It does give you true damage based on her attack, but basically at max investment you can use Arcane Downfall for the extra bulk, and you can also refine it for the speed. Keep in mind that you can always refine the rearmed weapons. So Charlotte can definitely use this at max investment because of the attack that she has got. She can definitely hit really hard with her specials. And then female Shez is also a debatable option, which I know many people might find a bit weird. But basically the reasoning is that her weapon, while it's pretty solid, it doesn't really have -1 special cooldown. And while it does give you damage reduction on foe's first attack, you can always try and use godlike reflexes with her with this weapon, and thanks to its -1 special cooldown, and easily loop the special. And you can also get a bit extra speed by refining the Arcane Downfall compared to her default weapon. So female Shez can definitely make use of this at max investment, but if you're not the biggest fan of her, then she can function fine with her default weapon. And then Raven, despite being Gen 1, is definitely going to be up here because of his offenses. Rinka has got the highest defense out of these tier 1 units, and she also has pretty good speed as well. Her attack is a bit lacking, but you can definitely use specials to pretty much compensate for that, and that kind of defense is really helpful with her speed to be really tanky and pretty much avoid the follow-up attacks of the enemy with your speed alone. Performing Arts Azura is easily one of the best units to be used with this weapon because she is not going to be getting a weapon refine, as they have shown with dancers not getting any kind of refine except for Legendary Azura. So you can actually use an arcane weapon with the vanilla refreshing skills like Sing, Play, and Dance. So Performing Arts Azura can still use her Sing skill while having this weapon, and that makes her a pretty good Gale Force dancer in something like Aether Raid's offense. because you're not going to be depending on Flashing Blade 4 for the special acceleration, and you can just have that in the weapon. And because she's an infantry unit, she also has access to infantry pulse, time pulse, infantry null follow-up, and running null follow-up Sacred Seal herself. So she's definitely up there in my opinion. And we also have Ninja Hana, Ninja Shamir, and Lifis as the Grail units, which are pretty popular merch projects for many people. In tier 2, we do have Atlas with his pretty high attack at base 40 and also decent enough speed at base 44. And this tier will be having units with decent enough speed. It is not going to be as fast as tier 1, and that's why these units are going to be finding themselves in tier 2. Annette's weapon refine is going to be a year or more away, I think. So that's why she can definitely make use of this, and her stat spread does allow her to use all of her stats if you pretty much just want to use her for the combat and not for the support. We also have Summer Caspar and Summer Ilger, which a lot of people have invested into. And Legion is also another Grail unit who is going to be an option, and while his weapon does provide him with special acceleration, it doesn't really provide him with minus and special cooldown. And while his Null Panic is pretty unique and nice, it's not exactly dependent on your own ability. You pretty much depend on the foe to have those buffs. So this weapon can definitely be pretty nice on Legion as well. And in tier 3, we move on to the units who are actually not going to be that fast, but they can definitely make use of Arcane Downfall with Quick Riposte 4. And the prime examples of these are going to be Balthus and Caellach. As you can see, Balthus has got really high defense with really good attack and also pretty respectable resistance, and Caellach on the other hand has got a bit better resistance. So both of these units can definitely function in the enemy phase with Quick Riposte 4. They're not exactly going to be having the mixed phase as the other faster units which are in this tier or even tier above them, but because of their bulk and the attack, they can pretty much use the damage reduction to take enemies hit and then retaliate back with a high cooldown special like Bonfire or Iceberg to do a lot of damage with their bulk and also their raw attack stat. And their bulk is definitely not that bad to function in the enemy phase. We also have Boyd with pretty high attack and decent speed stat. I don't really think that Deke's weapon is honestly all that good, and he just gets much out of this Arcane Downfall. Linus is also a pretty good user of this weapon, even though he's not as fast as Raven because of lacking those resplendent stats, but he definitely makes up in terms of the defense. And we do have Anna here. Anna is an Asker Trio unit, so she cannot really get merges, but she can get the Dragon Flowers, and many people do use her in Aether Raid's offense and also in Arena whenever she's a bonus unit. So it's a pretty decent weapon for her, even though like her attack stat is not the best for doing damage in the modern times, but her speed is still good enough so that she can double many of the opponents. Libra has got pretty evenly distributed stat spread, so you can definitely make pretty good use out of it. His refine is decent, but it's not much other than a stat ball and just some healing. And if healing is the thing, then you can get that from Arcane Downfall and also get the special acceleration. Brigand Boss and Gonzalez are actually pretty similar in terms of their attack and speed. We have units which don't have the highest speed but can work with their attack and defense like Basilio and Daros. So even if you are not blazing fast, having decent amount of speed at least opens you up to, prevent the follow-up attacks of slower units like sub 30 speed units. And then finally in tier 4 we have got a lot of the Gen 1 units. So these units pretty much just get outstatted as you would have imagined because of being a Gen 1 unit. So tier 4 units can definitely make use of this weapon as well, but they're not really the best because of their stat allocation. But if they are your favorites, then you can of course spoil them. Edelgard is actually quite due for a weapon refine, so we should be getting her anytime now. And Valentine Alm is actually going to be getting his weapon refine in May 2023, so it's only a couple of months away. It's not exactly a year away, so I have the units which I think will get refined from a year from now. And Garrick and Ross are also in there, and we also have Ocean and Echidna. But waiting for their weapon refine is probably the best move, just so that you can see if their weapon refine is good enough or not. And especially if you're a free-to-play player, you should definitely be pretty careful with your resource management, and especially with something as premium as a Rearmed hero. Like I said before, on a max investment female Shez, if you want to use godlike reflexes, then Arcane Downfall is going to be better than her weapon because it can provide you with minus and special cooldown, and it can also allow you to loop godlike reflexes a lot easily. So you can provide her with the special acceleration and special charging with a bunch of other units like Asker, Duochrome, or like Infantry Pulse support. There's just so many ways nowadays to pre-charge an infantry unit especially. So all of that can be done so that you can get the godlike reflexes going on. And you can run null follow-up in her slot base so that you can double through a lot of the follow-up negation units. And Speed Smoke 4 is going to be giving you the extra damage reduction. You can also run velocity on her if you want to, just so that you can have the null guard. And something like this at max investment is going to be functioning as a pretty strong Omni tank. You can also give your unit attack speed finish 4 because we are going to be triggering the specials pretty easily with Arcane Downfall. And godlike reflexes is good. But honestly, I like Vital Astra a lot more. And you can easily pre-charge it with Time Pulse, and by pre-charging it, you're going to be able to get that damage reduction. And then, even if the opponent has got guard, you can actually trigger Vital Astra twice in a single round of combat in the player phase. So that is definitely going to be pretty strong, and that way you can just loop Vital Astra even a lot easily if you do not really one-shot an opponent. So that could be done with someone like Raven with his Resplendent stats. And we also have Charlotte, who can use godlike reflexes, like I said, at max investment, and you can use attack speed finish for the true damage. And then you can also run velocity to make sure that you can loop godlike reflexes easily with the null guard. I'm not going to be going over every single unit, but these are the builds that you can generally run on units with similar stat spreads. So we also have more build options. For example, like I said, Performing Arts Azura is going to be pretty good for Ether Raid's offense, and when you use her with Asker, you can just run Time Pulse to have a one-tap Gale Force, which is extremely good because just one hit and you're going to be able to trigger your Gale Force. And having more actions on a Gale Force team is always useful to kill your opponent's units and also to trap them so that you can collect the pots. So Azura is one of those dancers which can have the 2 action with the help of Gale Force and Arcane Downfall and its special acceleration. So you don't really have to run Flashing Blade 4 on her, and you can just run an offensive slotty skill and run null follow-up as the Sacred Seal. Ninja Shamir is a very popular merch project, and attack speed finish, like I said, is one of the best slotty skills that you could run with this weapon because you're going to be getting even more healing, the true damage, and it is going to be having pretty generous condition. So you can easily run attack speed solo Sacred Seal, and you can actually stack up to 75% damage reduction when Vital Astra, Close Call, and Speed Smoke 4 are all active. So that can provide you with, a lot of damage reduction, which is going to be helpful when you stack up this amount of speed. And you can also run this on units just for the healing, because you can stack up healing of Arcane Downfall, attack speed finish, and then the Bulwark skill. So the Bulwark skill does provide you with the out of combat healing, while the finish skill and Arcane Downfall give you the in combat healing. So a unit like Atlas, who has got pretty high HP and can hit really hard with his attack stat, and with something like Bonfire, he's going to be able to heal up a lot of HP and also just destroy foes with his retaliation of Bonfire. Attack speed finish is definitely pretty premium, but if you want to have something more budget, then I suppose attack speed ideal 4 will do from the Divine Codes, and this is going to be having good synergy with the healing that you can get with Arcane Downfall to stay in the ideals range of 100% HP. And you can also run attack speed Oath 4 so that you can get the visible buffs to have another condition fulfilled. And bonus doubler is something that you can run on an Omni tank, especially when you're using an Oath 4 skill. This could be used on Anna, like I said, and she could be run in Arena with Dedue Infantry 4. Now, the thing about arcane weapons is that they don't really score as much as legendary weapons in the arena, but you can just run that on Anna so that you can have better performance. So she can run Vital Astra, and if you can pre-charge that, that is going to be helpful. But even if you cannot pre-charge it, she's still going to be doing fine. And keep in mind that with Arcane Downfall, you need to run a 300 SP slotsy skill to have 180 BST scoring, because again, Arcane Downfall does not score like a legendary weapon. Player phase builds are definitely possible with Arcane Downfall as well, and you can run Surge Sparrow so that you can get that healing, and Linus is going to be having pretty good defense to make use out of the Bonfire and do a lot of damage. And I would suggest running Bonfire because even if they face like a guard opponent who can counterattack, you can still trigger Bonfire, which is going to be helpful. Or even against a unit who has got a tempo skill, having a 2 cooldown special is good. And even if you face some kind of range opponent, on your double attack you can trigger Bonfire, so having 2 cooldown specials is pretty good, but you can also run Ignis if you want to, just for that higher damage output. But keep in mind that it is going to be a bit risky if you face guard opponents. Null follow-up is extremely important when you depend on your follow-up attack to trigger your special, so be sure to run that. Attack Speed Unity with Attack Speed Oath 4 is definitely a combo that you can run, and you can just pre-charge Vital Astra. You can also swap out Null Follow-Up for other skills like Bulwark skills or damage reduction skills, and you can easily give Null Follow-Up through external means as well, with Infantry Speed Tactic and Infantry Null Follow-Up. So that's always an option, and those kinds of supportive skills and supportive units are always going to be helpful. And with Attack Speed Unity, you're going to be able to protect yourself against those debuffs, and even if you get panicked on your Attack Speed Oath 4 buffs. Teleportation out of Attack Speed Oath 4 is also definitely fun. So far I've just gone over the units with speedy builds, but basically if you want to use this on a slow unit, then you should be getting Quick Repose 4 from Ganglot, and that is going to be giving you auto follow up as long as you're above 25% HP, and also 25% damage reduction on foe's first attack. So basically the plan is to tank the first hit from the opponent and then retaliate back with a very devastating special in Bonfire, which is going to be doing a lot of damage when you stack up this kind of defense on someone like Balthus. So like I said, Balthus and Caellach are pretty much the prime example of these slow units who can make use of Arcane Downfall with Quick Repose 4. We already get the follow-up negation from the weapon, so Attack Smoke 4 is actually not the best skill that you can run, and you can definitely run something like Joint Drive Attack so that you can boost up your attacking power to retaliate back with a very powerful hit, and that is pretty much a priority because we can many times one-shot many of the opponents with a powerful special like Bonfire and with the kind of attack that Balthus can get. So you are going to be able to soak up the damage with the damage reduction and then just kill the opponent and not really have to take the second hit, which is the ideal scenario, because on the second hit the opponent is going to be doing full damage, and if they do double, then Sturdy Stance with its guard effect is definitely going to be there to help you survive that. Ganglot can also give you Joint Distant Guard and Distant Stance at the same time, so you can definitely get this on the units that you want to run Distant Stance on. And Caellach does have a bit higher resistance than Balthus, so he can try and make use of this, and there are definitely a couple of like axe units who can do this as well by running Distant Stance. Attack Defense Unity is also an option that you can run on these slower units, but keep in mind that you're not going to be getting any kind of guard effect, so make sure to support them with Respite Staff that we have with Nina or with Drive Guard of Kaden. That is always going to be helpful for any kind of enemy phase tank. And Pulse Smoke is an option that you could run for Slotsy as well on these slower units. Hawkeye, I remember, is definitely one of the more popular merge projects from Gen 1, and Close Defense 4 is also an option that you could run with a bulky enemy phase unit, especially on someone like Hawkeye who does have that mixed bulk. And finally, whenever Attack Defense Finish 4 comes out, that is going to be a pretty good option on these lower units, just like Attack Speed Finish is on the faster units, so you can get the healing and the true damage by triggering your special. I do like the guard effect on a lot of these lower units because in case you do not kill the opponent, or in case they have guard and they prevent your special from going off, you can at least prevent their special charging if they double you. So I definitely like Sturdy Stance a lot, but these are also some of the other defensive options. Axe Armors can also make pretty good use out of Arcane Downfall because they are either speedy, or if they're slow, they do have access to the fighter skills like Crafty Fighter, Slick Fighter, and if they're fast, then Savvy Fighter and Hardy Fighter are definitely the skills they can utilize. Now the thing with Axe Armors is that if they are near safe, then they're gonna be really getting pressured by Brave Seliph and Legendary Nana, and if they are a far save armor, then Duo Chrom is gonna have a field day as a red unit who has got an armor effective weapon. So it is pretty hard for Axe Armors in the current metagame, despite you going near save or far save, so you have to prepare yourself for that kind of bad matchup. So when it comes to an Axe Armor, the winner is by far Amelia. Amelia is a fast Axe Armor with the defense with the attack that she can make use out of this weapon, and she can also get the healing and the special acceleration, so she can fire off those bonfires and even loop Pavis with Hardy Fighter. And Winter Lissa definitely takes the drop off when it comes to the speed, but still she can function as a speedy armor at max investment if you speed stack enough, and all of the other armors are pretty slow. So Dedue is going to be having the hardest hitting bonfires out of any of these Axe Armors because of his defense and attack. And we do have Mamori here with pretty good mixed bulk, and as I've said before in the infantry section, even if you're slow, not being the slowest does help because someone like Mamori can get enough speed to prevent the auto follow up from sub 30 speed units, which are pretty slow. So Mamori can definitely do that, and her weapon refine I think is more than a year away. So if you got a Pharma Mamori and if you have highly invested into her, then she could also be a pretty good option. The tier 3 armors are slow and they are just going to be stacking attack and defense for hitting really hard with their bonfires. And we do have Surtur, who is stuck in the jail, I guess, for the weapon refines, and the trade-off is not really all that big with his preferred skill. So who knows when he's going to be getting a refine, and many people did plus and merge him back from his debut banner. So he does have the mixed bulk and the attack and the HP, so he can definitely make use of this. Grail and Duochrome are going to be having pretty similar stat spread in that regard as well. Halloween Dorcas mainly has to focus on his attack and defense because his resistance is not as high as these other axe armors. And finally in tier 4 we have got Sheena, which to no one's surprise just gets outstatted by someone like Mamori or even like other year 1 armor units like Winter Lissa and Winter Chrome. Legendary Edelgard is going to be getting her weapon refine in mid 2023, and if you just want to use Legendary Edelgard until her weapon refine, then Seahorse Axe Plus is just much better with that auto follow up. Flame Emperor is going to be getting a weapon refine exactly in a year from now in November. So they do fit the threshold of this tier pretty exactly, so that's why I've put them here. Amelia can run Savvy Fighter because of her speed to get that full null follow up and damage reduction, and you can just run Bonfire with Savvy Fighter to retaliate back with it, and you can also use her with Hardy Fighter because she can actually trigger Pavis on the first hit, and then if the enemy has no guard, then she can pretty much get the special acceleration after her counter attack to have Pavis ready again in case she gets doubled or for the next combat. And Hardy Fighter does boost the damage reduction that you get out of Pavis, so that is really good for the longevity, combining with the healing that she can try and get. And when you're going to be using her in Aetherite's offense, then Unity skill does become pretty good to deal with the debuffs. Like I said before, Winter Lissa can also work as a fast armor, and Savvy Fighter again is here for giving you that null follow-up. And she is not going to be as fast as Amelia, but still you can try and build her in a way that she can stack up a lot of speed to make use of Savvy Fighter, because she's one of those armor units who's, not as slow as the other units. And if you're a slow armor, then you pretty much can run Sturdy Stance or Attack Defense Unity. And if you're running Sturdy Stance, then Slick Fighter is an option. And if you're running Attack Defense Unity, then Crafty Fighter is an option. So having the guard effect, in my opinion, is extremely important. And someone like Dedue, like I said, can have the strongest bonfires out of the axe armors because of his attack and defense. Mamori has got that mixed bulk, and Halloween Dorcas has the defense, does not have as much resistance, but he's a popular merch project. Hardy Fighter can also be run if you want to increase their longevity, and they can pretty much run it with Pavis, and on their counter attack, they can charge up Pavis once again in the case that they are getting doubled by some kind of faster null follow-up enemy. But keep in mind that Arcane Downfall doesn't really give you an auto follow-up, so you're not going to be able to double, and that is going to be at the cost of longevity that you get out of Hardy Fighter, and you pretty much have to depend on these fighter skills to get your auto follow-up. Axe Cavaliers and Axe Fliers can also make use of Arcane Downfall, but speed is definitely going to be pretty important for them because then they can have a mix phase and run Trace skill without really wanting to run Quick Repose 4 for the auto follow up. And if they're fast, then they can also make use of the Flow skill. And if they're slower, then Quick Repose 4 is definitely something that he should be giving them along with Arcane Downfall. So when it comes to the Axe Cavaliers, we have definitely gotten a decent amount of them, and a lot of them are actually going to be in tier 1, like Summer Seth, Plegian Male Kris, Spring Soleil. So all of these Cavaliers are actually pretty similar, like Seth and Kris are pretty similar in the aspect of their attack, speed, and defense. Soleil does have a bit more resistance and not as much defense, so the melee matchups are going to be affected, but still offensively, he is kind of similar. Drumarth is pretty much outstatted, at least in terms of attack, compared to all of these 3 Cavaliers. And we also have Spring Alphonse here, who kind of outstats Titania in a way, but Titania does have that speed to make use out of the Neotrace skill and still make use out of the Arcane Downfall. So I'm actually pretty happy because Titania is definitely one of the fan favorites. And even though Violent is not really all that fast, he can still be built up as one, similar to Winter Lissa. And he does have that defense to, have good melee matchups against a lot of the physical units. And in tier 4, we're going to be having the units which are not really all that fast, and they pretty much need quick repose 4 to double in the enemy phase, and their mixed phase is definitely pretty limited because of their low speed. Still, out of them, Zealot is going to be basically like a modern Frederick in a way, and then Frederick, Gunter are going to be in the bottom 2. When you're building up Axe Cavaliers with Arcane Downfall, you can run Luna on them so that you can trigger that as a 2 cooldown special, even if you face some kind of range opponent or if you face a guard opponent that can counter attack. So running 2 cooldown specials is definitely, nice on these kinds of units with Arcane Downfall, and you can also retaliate back with it in the enemy phase. So attack speed Clash 4 is the most premium skill that you could run on a Cavalier pretty much, and that can give you the debuff neutralization on your attack and speed, and also a lot of the offenses, and that can definitely work on Summer Seth, for example, and you can run Near Trace skill on these fast Cavaliers. For their slots, you can definitely run Attack Speed Menace or Rouse skill or Speed Smoke 4. I'm not the biggest fan of the Rouse 4 skills honestly, so Attack Speed Menace and Speed Smoke 4 are something that you could run, and solo skills do work out here on a Cavalier. Speed Smoke 4 on male Kris, for example, can work out in the mixed phase where you can get that damage reduction, which Cavaliers don't really have easily access to, and his speed is going to be stacked up, so he can definitely make use of that. And you can also use your Axe Cavaliers with Gale Force so that they can trigger Gale Force, and then they can also have the Near Trace pretty much as a mobility tool. And you can also run Surge Sparrow for a player phase build, and this is something that you could run on Titania because her raw attack is not really all that high, so you can pretty much try and compensate that with a special like Glacies, which can work off her resistance, which is going to be like 43 after Arcane Downfall, so it can give you good damage output, and Flow Guard can give you that partial null follow-up in the player phase. So pretty much with Arcane Downfall and a flow skill, you can try and have a bootleg null follow-up where you can bypass follow-up negation effects and also stop the auto follow-up attacks of the enemies that are slower than you. Just like Winter Lissa, Violent can also try and stack up as much speed as he possibly can because his speed is kind of workable with this weapon. He's not the slowest, and he does have defense to make use out of Bonfire. And Cavaliers are not really the best tanks because they don't have the highest stats or the best defensive skills. So I guess if you want to make use of this on a slower Cavalier, then Quick Repose 4 is going to be needed, and you can run a mixed phase skill like Attack Defense Catch Force so that you can still have power in the player phase. Axe Fliers, just like Axe Cavaliers, don't really have too many options. So in the tier 1, we're going to be having the free-to-play goddess Young Minerva. She has barely escaped the threshold of the last tier where the refine is due under a year. And Young Minerva is going to be getting a refine in January of 2024. So it is going to be a little more than a year. So she has escaped that threshold barely, but still, if you're a free-to-play player, you could try and wait for the weapon refine. But if you use her daily or if you use her a lot, then this weapon can definitely work out with her stat spread, with her defense, attack, and speed. And Summer Innes is also there. He doesn't have as much attack or defense as Young Minerva, but he's definitely one of the best premium Axe Fliers. Same goes for the original Minerva, who has got the resplendent version. And similar to Performing Arts Azura, we also have New Azura here because of being a dancer who has got 2 actions on a Gale Force team when she runs Gale Force herself. It's not going to be as good as Performing Arts Azura because she's not Infantry and she cannot have access to Null Follow-Up, Time Pulse. But for a Gale Force team, if you want to use her, then she could definitely try and work. Especially because Fliers and Cavaliers don't have access to Flashing Blade, so if they don't want to run Heavy Blade, then Arcane Downfall can provide them with the special acceleration. We do have Camilla here, who is not as fast as the tier 1 Axe Fliers, but she can work. And a Resplendent is kind of inevitable in my opinion. I think it's probably going to be happening under a year, I think, because we did recently get Ninja Camilla, so usually they try and stack up the voice actresses for their roles. So maybe her Resplendent is on the way, which is definitely going to be helping her. Narshan is not as fast as Camilla, but he can definitely work out despite having pretty similar attack to Camilla, and he does have a bit more defense. And we also have, slow Axe Fliers like Jerome, Michaelis, and Shershay in tier 3. Daruk unfortunately is going to be in tier 4 because she doesn't really have as much attack as the Axe Fliers above her, and she does not really have the speed, and she doesn't really have speed either, like Camilla for example, who also does not have very high attack. Spring Fear is going to be getting a weapon refine in mid 2023, so you should probably try and hold off because her weapon refine is probably going to be pretty good because she was a Pharma seasonal unit, and usually their weapon refines have been pretty nice so far. Axe Flyers can use this weapon with Bonfire or Iceberg or Luna as a 2 cooldown special, and young Minerva can definitely make use of Bonfire pretty well, and you can also use attack speed catch for the offenses, the Neotre skill, and the Rain skill, which is a pretty standard build for a flying unit. You can also try and use attack speed unity with Oath Force skill so that you can teleport, have good synergy with that Slotty skill and the Form skill. You can also run attack speed clash 4 with the Oath Force skill because even if you teleport, your spaces are going to be counted and clash skill is going to be working out fine. So that's why on flying units, when you're going to be running clash skills, having Oath Force skill can definitely help you. And Camilla can definitely make use of this to stack up her offenses and pretty much retaliate back with Iceberg or use it in the player phase because of her resistance. And stacking up speed is definitely going to be helpful so that you can prevent the follow-up attacks of the enemies that are going to be slower than you. Flow skills are definitely something that you can use, and Flyers do have access to Flow Feather and Flow Flight. Not a lot of units can make use of this, but Minerva I suppose can make use of it because of her defense. Against a lot of the very defensive units, she's not going to be able to get the max effect out of this, but still, the partial null follow-up is going to be pretty good with the Surge Sparrow build. And like I said, having a Gale Force Dancer is pretty good on a Gale Force team in Aether Raid's offense because of the 2 actions. She can provide you with the Rain or the hold support to your team with those in-combat debuffs, so that is definitely something you can do. And if you're going to be running this on a slow Flyer, then Quick Repose 4 is going to be needed, and you can just run attack defense hold for the attack debuffs and run sturdy stance for the guard. The final Arcane Downfall tier list is going to be looking something like this. We've got tier 1 Infantry and Armor units, which are pretty much the best units to receive this weapon. We also have tier 1 Fliers and Cavaliers, and they don't really have as many skills like armors or infantry units, but still they can function well with this weapon if they are your favorites. In tier 2, we still have units who can make pretty good use out of this weapon. In tier 3, we have got the units who are not the best with this weapon, but also not the worst. And here you can definitely find units who are not as fast as the units above them, or they're just slower units with tanky stats. Now we can definitely try and compare this with free-to-play and premium options. So there are a bunch of free-to-play options when it comes to Arcane Downfall, as you can see. There are just a lot of Axe Infantry, Axe Cavaliers, and Fliers in the free-to-play pool, so you can just see them here. And you can definitely see the difference when you see the premium side of the Arcane Downfall tier list. It just goes to show you how many like free-to-play Axe units that we have gotten. So here we do have the premium units which are 5-star logged or are not as easily mergeable as the free-to-play units who are available in the 3-star, 4-star pool and also in the Grail pool. But if you have them highly merged, then you can definitely try and spoil them. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to use Arcane Axe for inheritance. And if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment, helps you tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member down below. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I wish YouTube sub boxes would show my videos as many times as the amount of free-to-play Axe units that we have gotten in FEH so far. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.